Mbweha, you can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this is the Playbook, where you can come to learn to do something very specific in Star Wars Legion a little bit better than you did before. I hope. Today we're talking about planning, playing, and reflecting.
And I love it when a plan comes together.
To get better at, well, really anything in life, you have to engage in these three practices. Now, you might not even realize that you do these things, but if you stop and think about it, which, by the way, would be reflecting, you'll discover that sure enough, you already engage in all of these practices. So let's talk about how to do it intentionally in Legion. Before we go any further, I just want to really quickly talk about something. Competitiveness. Competitiveness can mean different things to different people, and when that happens, it's pretty normal for people to start to get bent out of shape. This is perhaps best described by my teammate Screwtape, who put it something like this. Lots of people think that they have the exact right amount of competitiveness, and that anyone who's trying to be more competitive than the right amount is a tryhard, and that anyone who is being less competitive than the right amount is a filthy casual.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Having this toxic viewpoint is bad for everybody, and before we talk about something as meta as planning, playing, and reflecting, we all need to make sure we understand that different people play Legion for different reasons, and at different levels of competitiveness, and whatever that level is, fine. Basically, you do you. But if you're interested in some very macro ideas about how to win more games of Legion, here we go. Number 1, planning, the list. The best list for any competitive event is always the list that you are the most comfortable with. If you show up for a tournament with a list that you've never piloted before, you cannot expect to do well. It's just not realistic. I find I usually have to play a list at least 3 times just to begin to get a sense of how to play it well. But if you're looking to win a major event, 3 is not going to be enough. How do I know this? I asked the winners of the last 3 major Legion events how many reps they had with their list prior to the event. John Griffin of Team Relentless, who won Knowledge and Defense, had played around a dozen games with his list. Luke Cook, the current Invader League champ, estimated he had between 5 and 10 reps with his list. And JJ's Juggernaut, who just won Gen Con, had around 15 reps.
Look at the size of that thing.
So yeah, the most important factor when it comes to selecting your army list is how comfortable you are with it. Beyond that, there are 2 other major factors to consider. How will your list function against whatever meta you're likely to face? And are you comfortable with how terrain dependent your list is? Number 2, planning visualization. I grew up playing a lot of baseball, and one of the things that I always loved about it was on defense, before the pitch was delivered, I could think about what I needed to do if the ball came to me. Not just that, but I would imagine the ball coming to me as the pitch was delivered. I would see it in my head so that my body would be coiled and ready to react and know what to do once I got the ball. Now, most of the time, my body was being lied to.
Liar!
But when the batter really did swing and rip one down the third base line, I was always ready. So what's this got to do with Legion? Sometime within 24 hours of playing a game of Legion that I'm taking very seriously, I take 15 minutes to imagine the game in my head. I review what objectives and deployments are best for my list. I go over which units I'm going to deploy first and why. I think about my plan for my command cards. What's my opener? Under what circumstances would I change that plan? What rules am I bad about remembering and need to refresh on? How am I going to stay positive if I get behind? And so on. Now there are people out there who think that visualization is a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
I hope I haven't given you that impression. Visualization is simply a way to plan ahead so that you're as prepared as you can be.
It's true. The Force, the Jedi, it's all true.
Number 3, playing. Win without rolling. Once you start actually playing the game, those plans that you've made will fall apart. You'll need to react on the fly to the decisions your opponent is making, factors like time limits, and literally how the dice are falling. Now, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but you cannot control if you roll well or not, nor can you control if your opponent rolls well or not. Therefore, you have to always be mentally prepared for the dice to do you dirty, but to play so well that it doesn't matter. This is mainly accomplished by keeping your eyes on the prize. The objective is what determines the winner in a game of Legion, and you should never forget that when you're playing your game. Always keep in mind the worst case scenarios. Hedge your bets and pursue a path to victory that relies on dice as little as possible.
People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us. Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
Now, all that being said, you also need to recognize when you are behind and going to lose unless you take a risk and get lucky. Sometimes you gotta channel your inner Han Solo, press your luck, and take risks that rely on dice going your way. But these aren't really strategies so much as desperate prayers to dice gods.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Number 4, reflecting, the good and the bad. Once the game is over, you're gonna wanna go over the reasons why you won or lost and take note of them. Different players do this in different ways, and that's obviously fine. I'm gonna tell you how I do it, with the hopes that it helps you figure out what works best for you. Immediately after the game, I try to quantify 3 things: the dice, the list matchup, and the actual decisions made by my opponent and me. The goal of this process is to create a very macro, sort of 10,000 feet up view. In each of these categories, I make a ratio whose numbers add up to 10, and then I think about how things went for myself and my opponent. The first number is my score, the second number is my opponent's. I also add all these numbers up for a total score, and if I did a good job, the winner should have the higher total. The margin between the numbers should roughly represent how close the game was. For example, here are the numbers for an imaginary game in which the dice were pretty even, I thought I had a slight list advantage, and I thought I made slightly better decisions than my opponent during the game. Now, an important note about dice. Dice are for sure the easiest thing to screw up when you're doing your reflection process. I can't tell you how many times I've heard players say that they got diced and then stopped searching for reasons how they could have won anyway, or are possibly just straight up wrong because they're only focused on a few rolls that didn't go their way. Be very cautious about the dice rating. I would say in all the games of Star Wars Legion I've ever played, I've only truly lost to dice one time. And the rating I gave the dice in that game was still only 3 to 7. If you consistently think that dice are the reason why you're losing, you're doing a bad job reflecting on your play.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Right, so the reason I do this really macro quantification of the game is to help guide me towards what it is I need to focus more specifically on. If I got outplayed, why? What didn't I see coming, or what mistakes did I make that my opponent was able to capitalize on? If it was the list matchup that did me in, how could I have played differently to minimize that disadvantage, or do I need to adjust my list going forward? If I won, how did I do it? What mistakes did I make that my opponent could have taken advantage of but didn't? And last, was there a turning point in the game? In other words, at what point in the game did I feel that the outcome was pretty much decided?
You can't win, Darth.
Number 5, rinse and repeat. And then you start the whole process all over again. I don't know if you're already familiar with growth versus fixed mindsets, but generally the idea is this. People who recognize that there's always room for more improvement tend to do better in life than people who think they've already maxed out how good they can be at a thing. In gamer speak, real life has no level cap. Bonus! Remember, if you play on stream, that you can and should go back and watch it. This lets you see what other people were thinking about the game as it was unfolding. It is a hugely powerful tool to help make you a better player. Remember that you literally can't win them all, and you need to be mentally prepared to lose graciously and be a good sport. In addition to that, don't neglect the learning opportunities that fall into your lap when you lose.
The greatest teacher, failure is.
And remember, at the end of the day, it is just a board game. Summary. Let's review. Number 1. Know your list well. Number 2, visualize how to play your list in advance of the event. Number 3, win without rolling, which is to say, play to the objective and don't rely on dice. Number 4, reflect about the plays that made and broke the game and don't focus on the dice. And number 5, you can always keep getting better. Now you have some better macro strategies to improve your play over time. I hope. If you liked the video, please prove it. And subscribe, if you're into that sort of thing. I'm Mbweha, you can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this has been the Playbook. Planning, playing, and reflecting.